I watched a bunch of Godzilla movies. Really the reason I did it was for an Evangelion video that I decided not to do because I needed to watch like 500 episodes of things, and after the Godzilla movies, so like, uh, for one video, mind. Well, I say one video, but I have like two possible ideas for Godzilla videos planned. One I'm like definitely gonna do. One I'm maybe gonna do. So I guess to quickly kind of explain, like, because I didn't watch all of them. I don't think I could have. Like at a certain point, I was just like, I just want to be done with Godzilla, and I cut off like one or two movies that I was planning to watch. I forget how many there are. There's like 38 or something like that, and I watched 16 Godzilla movies and one that's in the same franchise as the Legendary Pictures Titan Kaiju verse kind of thing, with their four films with Kong versus Godzilla coming out later this year. And I guess like coming into the Godzilla movies, so I had a recommendation chart which I will link in the description. I can't say I found it particularly helpful. I kind of stuck to the recent Godzilla movies, the Legendary Pictures ones, Shin Godzilla, and everything on this recommendation chart that was recommended or higher, or the original, which was marked as classic, like must watch. I say it wasn't helpful because, like, I guess, okay, I'm just gonna say it. I wouldn't call myself a fan of Godzilla. Like, I was before watching these films. I'd seen the 98 one as a kid. I vaguely remember seeing like an episode of the cartoon, a Godzilla cartoon from like the fucking 70s, was it? Rerunning, of course. I get the boomer jokes, but I'm not really that old. Yeah, it was the 1978 Godzilla cartoon is the one I vaguely remember seeing probably on Boomerang or something like that. I know there was a cartoon based off of the 98 Godzilla, which I remember some people on the 4chan's comic cartoon board said was good, or better than the movie. Not a high bar, so I don't really have interest in watching it. Like actually, yeah, 98 is probably my least favorite Godzilla one, which I had a couple other ones I didn't care for, and we're also kind of down there, which I'll talk about, because that's my, I'm going to go through all the ones I watched and talk about them briefly, but I just want to sort of say, so preferably after you listen to me talk about them, is because yeah, I didn't watch all of them, like, but if there are ones you missed, like I am going to watch the Gamera 90s trilogy and probably the original. After that, I don't really know what other sort of kaiju / Godzilla movies I'm going to watch, but if you have any recommendations that I didn't see, please check like through the time codes in the video and make sure that you're not recommending me one that I already saw and have literally talked about. So yeah, but because there's a lot, and like I said, the recommendation chart, like I say, it didn't help me because most of the one, like, I don't know, I gave most of the Godzilla movies like a 4 out of 10. Like, I was just like, yep, that sure is a movie. And then I watched like Godzilla 98 and like, wow, I appreciate those other ones a little bit more now. Like, the rating discrepancy is kind of high. Like, let's put it this way, my second favorite Godzilla movie is King of the Monsters. I gave it a 7 out of 10. This is my second favorite one out of 17. So, like I said, not a huge fan. Like, I like it, it was definitely kind of like, because Godzilla is such a cultural, like, icon in both East and West, more so in, probably Japan, but, like, he's very well known in America, too. Like, everyone knows about Godzilla. I've known a lot about him, even never having seen a Godzilla movie. So watching it was, and of course, I watched it, original Japanese, subtitled, not the edit, and no edits or dubs. The only ones I watched in English were the American films that I watched. So, I have some of the cultural context. I asked Joe from Pauses Lex because I am planning at least a Godzilla video. He gave me his bibliography for something he's working on. So I have a bunch of Godzilla reading to do. And like I said, if anyone has any other kaiju films that they think are good that I didn't talk about here, I will consider checking them out. Sell it to me. Because like I said, after a point, I was just like, I'm done with Godzilla. And then after that, I found my favorite Godzilla movie. So it ended up being worth it, I'd say. And we'll get to that. You could probably guess which one it is if it's not King of the Monsters. So I guess real quick, I want to give, like, this is my recommendation as, again, someone who's not a particular Godzilla fan of, like, which ones should you watch? If you haven't watched Godzilla, you have some interest in it, because, I don't know, I thought it was worth checking out. I would suggest the original. I still think it holds up in a few ways. I think it's interesting. It's, culturally important. It's in my top 5 still, of Godzilla movies. And it was the first one I watched, and I'm probably going to rewatch it this year in preparation for my video. After that, if you want goofy, over-the-top ridiculousness, Final Wars is another one of the best Godzilla movies. It's just ridiculous. Kind of dumb, but it's fun. And, that's like a reason, as good a reason to watch a movie as any. After that, my most recommended, or after that, I'd consider, really, after you watch the original, you can really just watch any of them. Like, King of the Monsters is most recent, probably the most accessible. I'll talk about it in detail, like, it's my second favorite, even though I had some minor problems with it, but I don't know, I enjoyed it. It was fine. Kind of a shocker considering all the other American kaiju films I watched for this were kind of trash. Like, the second best one is Godzilla 2014, and I gave it a 4 out of 10, so not a big fan. Absolute recommendation is after the original Shin Godzilla, which is, basically a modern remake of the original, directed by Hideaki Anno. Phenomenal fucking film. As in, like, it is my first, like, new favorite 10 out of 10 movie in, like, 2 years since I watched In This Corner of the World, like, a couple years ago. I watched Shin Godzilla, and it was stuck in my mind, like, everything about it for, like, 48 hours. Like, I went to work, I was, I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it's going to be the focus of my video when I get around to it, because holy shit. And then after that, I would say, maybe not, like, I'm not really giving an order. Like I said, after you watch the original, it's whatever. But there is like a 90s film series, starting with one that I didn't watch. The first one I watched from it was Godzilla vs. Biollante, which, and Godzilla vs. Destroyah. I think those are both worth considering. I did like them. I basically just listed out my top 5. The original I guess I get my top 6. So the original Godzilla, versus Biollante versus Destroyah, Final Wars, Shin Godzilla, and King of the Monsters. So, there's a lot of variance there. Like, Godzilla definitely, like, Shin Godzilla kind of runs with it, but he evolves over the course of the franchise. Like, you can kind of see in the costumes. Like, in some costumes, he's got bigger googly eyes because he's a less threatening. Those movies are sillier. And then, like, Final Wars is lots of, like I said, goofy silliness. Shin Godzilla is brutal. The original is brutal in its own right. And some of the movies kind of dip into serious humor, where it's like the characters are taking things seriously and acting, but the what's happening is so utterly ridiculous. It's hard to see as anything but funny. Final Wars would be that, because it's just goofy and over the top and zany. It's fun. And some of the other movies, do that or do it, but not as well. Or I don't know. And then, like, that's not even getting into, like, the effects work and stuff. Like, Biollante is I saw a review for Final Wars that was like, man, the CG was so good, but why would they use suit actors? Why would they use these bad effects? And I'm like, the CG in that movie, like, mostly when I think about the CG in the movie, I think about Zilla, when because they brought in the American Godzilla, and he just, like, looked like they... I didn't like that movie, but they did not do the character justice in Final Wars, and I'll talk about it in detail, but, like, the CG didn't look good. And, like, honestly, like, King of the Monsters looked great because, modern... big Hollywood blockbuster CG, like, they made Rodan cool. Like, he's just a fucking pterodactyl who throws rocks at things, but no, they make him some fucking, like, giant firebird. I'm like, holy shit. This is cool. What the fuck? But Biollante, as far as, like, the actual practical effects go, like, the puppeteering on the fucking Biollante form, and even just, like, the opening of the movie where it shows clips from the previous Godzilla movie and the destruction of the city and the Godzilla suit, like, I was like, that it's probably some of the best toku effects practical effects I've seen from a tokusatsu film or, kaiju film, anything like that. I mean, mostly what I've seen, I've seen like one season of Ultraman, a few seasons of Super Sentai, like TV stuff. This is a film. So yeah, but that's based on what I watched. I would consider at least checking out if you just want like a cursory glance. Like if you're gonna go full in, like watch all of them. Like because that's the definition of full in. And there's a bunch. Yeah, and I don't like I said I don't know which ones outside of the ones I watched are worth considering. But I guess I'll just start going in. So yeah, the original. There's been a lot of discussion. Like just me hearing some of the discussion, I kind of knew some things going into it. Like I watched. Pause and Select has a video. Like what does Godzilla mean on on the side channel, where he talks about a lot, like the context going into Godzilla, which I rewatched after having seen a bunch of Godzilla movies, and I was like, oh, okay, because I didn't know a lot about I knew about the world, like the atomic message, and that's kind of what the video talks about, where how the atomic message kind of like fades away from the franchise, or it's an interesting video, it's definitely helpful to me, yeah, but I just thought it was interesting, even without that knowledge, because yeah, it's like mostly what I took from it was about like sort of the aggression aspect to it, which is it's kind of like maybe not consistent through kaiju, but it's in other stuff too, where it's like they're generally these like giant monsters that normal weapons don't have an effect on yet, so like continued aggression tends to result in retaliation from the monsters. So and that was especially interesting because again I couldn't separate the World War II stuff from and the atomic stuff from the original Godzilla movie. I was probably focusing more on the World War II stuff than the general, because again I didn't know about the Casa Brava testing, but because that's what I kind of took from my watching it from it was the aggression, where like after the original disaster they send helicopters out, and then Godzilla causes more havoc, and like you see the helicopter wreckage, and then like there's this just continued back and forth of them trying to deal with Godzilla, and then Godzilla just like it just sort of and it does at the end of the movie they give the message about how as long as atomic weapons testing continues, more Godzilla will continue to exist. Godzilla being kind of symbolic of the war dead, which I hadn't really, I'm not Japanese. I didn't understand the references, to borrow words from the Pause and Select video. But mostly what I took about it was from how like aggression isn't sustainable. Like there's even the whole plot with the oxygen destroyer, where like yeah, humanity can create this weapon that's even more powerful than Godzilla, that's even more terrifying than this personification of an atom bomb, and now like it's continued aggression and will to destroy is just unsustainable. Like I've heard a discussion about how like just generally speaking, not around Godzilla, but how like World War II kind of showed how like mass scale war isn't really logistically feasible. Like war is too big to happen like that again so easily. I hope that remains true, but yeah, I thought it had an interesting conflict. And yeah, maybe I was able to enjoy it on some level, knowing like how important Godzilla was. I don't know. That's fine. I don't see a problem with that. And Godzilla varies so much over the like franchise that even if you happen to like watch it and don't enjoy it, like there's a billion other Godzilla movies and they kind of change. Like even just I skipped the second one and then I went to Godzilla versus King Kong. And it's pretty different. But do I have more to say on the original Godzilla? It had Takashi Shimura, who's like one of my favorite actors. He shows up in a lot of Kurosawa films. I don't know. There's definitely more to discuss, and like I said, I need to do my reading on it. But like I said, I think it's interesting. I think it still holds up in a few ways. I give it a 6. I liked it. And I'm probably gonna rewatch it, and I'm probably gonna talk about it in the Godzilla video, or maybe multiple. I don't know. King Kong versus Godzilla was definitely, like I said, it was different because, again, how it was framed in the Pause and Select video, what side channel video was, it moves away from the atomic message and goes more to pro wrestling, where it's sort of like, he does mention the shonen manga connection, which is where I'm more easily able to, like, make a comparison that, hopefully my audience will better understand, because I don't really know wrestling, but, with a conflict you have... It's effectively, a fight is an ideological conflict between two sides, and that's kind of what you'll see in a lot of kaiju movies, especially the ones based off of, derived more from King Kong versus Godzilla, where there are two sides. Like even before going to the movie, I heard it framed as East versus West, which I just assumed like, oh, Godzilla's an Eastern property and King Kong's a Western property. But then watching the movie, Godzilla is awakened by an American was it American submarine? I think so. A nuclear submarine that just like accidentally ran into an iceberg, and Godzilla woke up. Well, King Kong was found by a Japanese pharmaceutical company who wanted a mascot for advertisements. I am not shitting you. This is why I say serious humor, because Godzilla's causing shit, and they decide to like tie a bunch of balloons to King Kong and send him over so that he can fight Godzilla. So yeah, there's that. And I guess like other things you can say about the conflict is like they even mention like, oh, Godzilla is he's a monster or he's a creature who's been affected by, radiation. He's been mutated. He's not natural, where King Kong is like a natural creature. Like at some one point, a news announcement or something, just like it draws attention to that, which implies, oh, maybe it's doing something. And the movie kind of opens up like, again, I go. This is hopefully last time I go on about the pause and select video where because he mentions Joe is on screen when he mentions that. Like part of the King Kong vs. Godzilla was it was a response to TV where pro wrestling was really popular, and the characters in early on talk about how like about TV and how like they keep having to be more extreme and over the top to get more viewers, and that's kind of what the movie is like. It's continuing this ridiculousness of just the premise, and then it just kind of peters out, and it's like, guess humans shouldn't mess with nature, and I'm like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? Was this what these like elements were building to? Like, yeah, I only talk about themes. There's stuff to enjoy in the movie beyond the thematic conflict, but I was just baffled because it's like, yeah, I see these like elements being built up to, and then it's just they do the same thing at the like the first Godzilla movie where they state the moral at the end, but it unlike the original Godzilla movie, it's just weird. It doesn't work. Oh yeah, the movie's also super problematic because it has tribal islanders who are played by Japanese actors in blackface. So really, really aping... Oh god, I didn't even mean that pun. I'm gonna say it anyway. Really aping the original 1933 King Kong. But yeah, nothing, like... I don't know, it existed. It was weird. I guess at least there's things about it that stood out, because, like Mothra versus Godzilla, some things happened. There's a line in the movie where it's like, do you have Mothra's power of attorney? They have to know what they're fucking doing when they're writing this shit, right? Like, it's amazing. Like, I don't know, see, at this point, like, I watched the first one in October, and I'm just like, how long has it been since I've seen this in the movies? So my thoughts on them aren't as fresh. Like, yep, there were the fairies, and, there was a guy who, died because he couldn't let go of his greed, and the building he was in got destroyed. Because there's like humans are evil, but maybe we can make society better or something like that. And again, I don't remember it super well. It was a movie. I think that was another 4 out of 10. Most of them are 4 out of 10. Spoilers. Almost half of them were 4 out of 10s actually, and some were lower. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was another kind of like, yep, that was a Godzilla movie where the best part about it was in the climax where you have like a telepath who's like communing with Godzilla and Rodan and explaining their thoughts, because like they don't want to team up because they're both gigantic assholes, but then they team up because Ghidorah comes along and is more of an asshole. That's it. There's your pro wrestling conflict. Lesser assholes team up against greater asshole. Like, Ghidorah's just running thing in the whole film series is he's just a giant fucking asshole, basically. And Godzilla's less of an asshole, but he's still an asshole because, like, there's one movie, I think it was versus King Ghidorah, maybe it was versus Mechagodzilla, where, like, Godzilla's fucking around, and then they're just like, our projections say that he's gonna come and fuck up Tokyo. Like, for no reason. He's just, like, got a GPS where it's like, oh, better fuck up Tokyo again. Like, that one, there's, like, a meme, a hurricane chart path image where there's, like, one of them is, like, a line going off and out into the Atlantic Ocean. It says, oh, and then it just turns around, oh, just gonna fuck up Florida again. Like, that's Godzilla, but with Tokyo. It's funny. Destroy All Monsters, big crossover thing with a bunch of other movies that I didn't watch, I presume. It's nice seeing all the cool costumes. Like, Monday's a big old snake, and I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't see the snake movie, but I don't know. I didn't like how, like, Mothra's a moth, but in, like most of the movies, they just use the, like, caterpillar or the larva form, and I'm just like, but it's Mothra, not shit, that doesn't work. And yeah, there were aliens who were mind controlling him, and I was like, yeah, that's happening. The monster fight in this one was great because it's literally like 15 minutes of all the monsters bullying King Ghidorah. Like, there's one part where like I think Minilla or Mini Godzilla is like stomping on him while like a bunch of like some of them are stepping on Ghidorah's neck or like pulling on his tail. Like they're just like Ghidorah's just on the ground and everyone's just like bullying his body until he dies, and it's so funny. I mean, Minilla looks fucking horrifying, but creepy ass baby Godzilla thing shows up in Final Wars 2. Still creepy ass baby Godzilla thing. No, thank you. And I guess it shows up more in Versus King Ghidorah, like later, the 90s movie. But I guess one thing I noted down about this one is that like the world is in danger, but Japan is like the Japanese military is doing all the work. I especially noticed it also in the original Ultraman. There's some xenophobia. Like I wouldn't say this one like, that is directly like xenophobic, but like there was another country that said that I wrote down that apparently there was another country that said they'd help, and then like but no, Japan's just doing all the work. I'll bring it up with the King Ghidorah versus King Ghidorah later, but there's some xenophobia in old Toku stuff. Versus Mechagodzilla was yet another movie that existed. Godzilla got like magnet powers. I don't. They're like look, okay, so I'm the type of person I say I like, oh, I want to find the value in everything, and I think at this point I was like getting frustrated with Godzilla movies because it's like I was waiting for I think I said like I'm waiting for them to be good because like I want to like say look at this thing that has value, it's got something to say, it's got a message here, even if like yeah parts of like fairy tale, parts of it are trash, some of its messages don't get across, but like there's value there. I want to like point out that value, like even if like I don't care, it's connected to someone, so someone will appreciate having this pointed out to them, even if they don't, even if they admit there are other problems with the work. Like we don't have to like always like perfect things, but like the easiest way I have to do that is themes, because I'm just decent at picking them out, and I recognized even from the first Godzilla, like King Kong, I like I said, I pulled out 3 like thematic conflict ideas that I could have run with, but none of them really like made sense with what the movie did, and so I'm just like mostly because like the reason I say find value is because I'd heard the kind of general idea of like, oh yeah, Godzilla movies, you just skip to the monster battle at the end, and I'm like, well no, they put, and I also people shit on the human characters, like, oh this movie has too many human characters and they're all boring. And like, I'll especially talk about it later, but like, going into the franchise is like I wanted to find the value in the human characters and like what the conflicts were in service of. But like, then you get these kind of movies where it's just like there's nothing. Yeah, they kind of say some things that you can kind of tie to it, I guess, and I'll find the value in, oh, never mind. So again, not that I disliked it, like this is why I say I'm not a fan, where it's like, there's reasons to enjoy things other than like thematic conflicts or something, like Baccano, fun as shit anime. I have like nothing to say on it thematically, but I gave it an 8. I liked it a lot. It's fun. What am I supposed to say? The characters are enjoyable. And with the Godzilla movies, it's like, there's parts on the human characters who aren't notable characters, and then there's goofy monster battles. So I kind of get where they're coming from when they say skip to the monster battles with some of these Godzilla movies. But then like King of the Monsters got the same shit, and I'm like, we'll talk about King of the Monsters. But anyway, skipping ahead over about a decade and a half to the 90s, versus Biollante. Like this one, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Honestly, I should bump up my score because I gave it a 5 out of 10 because I kind of like wasn't paying full attention. Like I get tired and like nod off. I'm old. I fall asleep sometimes. No, I didn't. But I didn't fall asleep. But I definitely wasn't paying full attention to it. But this movie was actually like, I was like, wow, this is looking back, it's like I have no issues with it. Aside from this, I had trouble getting invested in it. Where I feel like if I rewatch it, and not anytime soon, but I like it a little bit more because it had like a good conflict. One of the more interesting ones where like Biollante, like it is made with genetic engineering. Like he's a plant mixed with like Godzilla DNA and human DNA, and he turns into a giant monster. But it's also it's played against Godzilla, who's this monster who's created by negligence, by radiation and such affecting, nature. So you're playing it, and that's what the human characters are for. They're there to, like, that's where I was going with the human character thing, is that they're there to give the context towards the to what the kaiju battles are, and feed into that ideological conflict while having their own, like that's basically what the human characters are generally for, and in this case, like, the human drama was interesting, and like I said, it fed into the message about how basically humans can affect nature, but basically we should affect it positively rather than through negligence, so Biollante kind of wins basically the fight, and like, because it was ultimately created to bring greenery to the Sahara Desert and better the world, and like I said, the fucking effects were fucking great. Like I my jaw was dropped when I saw Biollante in full. Like, holy shit! So yeah, yeah, it ended up being pretty enjoyable. Versus King Ghidorah, not so much. It was just okay. So xenophobia. So the premise of the movie is that there are time travelers from the future who are talking about Godzilla causing a disaster, so they need to stop Godzilla, so they go back in time to stop Godzilla from happening, but they leave some monsters there on accident. Oh, and it turns to King Ghidorah, and it turns out the time travelers were sent from the future to stop Japan from becoming a world superpower. So you have these other small nations bullying Japan in the past and getting rid of Godzilla in place of King Ghidorah, and so that they could ruin Japan. And the best part is there's 3 time travelers, 2 white guys and a Japanese woman. And guess which one betrays the time travelers for Japan? yeah, it's just a little framing, the outsider, the threat to the invader, again during this was 91, so just at the tail end of the Cold War. Not that I don't know how big the Cold War was to Japan. Like, I think of it a lot as an American. I was born the year the Cold War ended. My parents grew up during it, basically, and were married through it. Or together through it. So, like, I think about it a lot. But and yeah, like I Ultraman also had a lot of this, which I might talk about at some point too, because it had there was an episode with invading mole people, all Caucasian actors. There was an episode where like Japanese like ancestry, but I forget if he was born in Brazil or just raised in Brazil. He was a plant person, because apparently I've heard this idea that with Japan is if you're not like Japanese nationality and Japanese ethnicity, you're not considered Japanese. So if you're like parents are Japanese but you were born and raised in Spain, you're not considered Japanese basically, or something like that. And then if you're not Japanese ethnicity but you're born and raised in Japan, you're still not considered there's probably a word, but there's just this sort of adherence to that, and so that which I just felt the need to mention, because the plant guy was Japanese, but nah, he was raised in Brazil, so he's not considered Japanese in the same way, which is why he's a invading plant monster. And I think there was a couple other Ultraman episodes like that, but yeah, I just recognize, and I have heard like people say, oh yeah, Japan's xenophobic, and I'm like, I don't know how bad it is today, or I'm sure it exists, and no country is a single person. Like, there's going to be strokes of it here or there. At least in the Toku I've seen, it's I think it's a little better, it is. I haven't seen it in anything modern, at least, like Lupin Rangers versus Pat Ranger, my favorite Tokusatsu TV series. Very Western inspired from the get go. With the I think it handles like the one character is he's half Japanese, half French, and they do the Black Commissioner trope. The Patrol Rangers, they're cops, and their boss, their mentor figure he's black, and it's like, okay, yeah, and there's I didn't see anything comparable to the Ultraman or King Ghidorah stuff. So the weird tangent. That's not why I disliked the movie. I disliked the movie because the time travel shit was stupid. There was like a good part. See, when I watched the movie, I was like, because there's a former soldier who saluted Godzilla because Godzilla saved him from during the World War II, a battle against Americans, and it's Americans, and then then the soldier, he became a salaryman, and Godzilla destroys him, and I laughed because in the pause and select video that the way he frames it, it's just funny, because Godzilla just blows him up, and I just Like watching the movie, I was like, whoa, okay, wow, that was something emotional. Like I felt an emotion rather, in this movie I was otherwise just really bored and disengaged with. But I don't know what there's what there's to take from, because there's like a Terminator. Like I noticed this also the case with versus Destroyah, where they just kind of like nab from from big popular Hollywood things, like because Godzilla's, I guess, the reason that Godzilla can be can be, represent whatever, fits the context, is because, yeah, he is a character who's like, he's gone on so long that, you can't really draw just the atomic message out of it, which again was the point of the pause and select video. There was a fucking Terminator, like a cyborg dude, and then they replaced his brain chips and he became a good guy, and I'm like, okay, this is happening. Weird movie. I don't know. I'm kind of I can be finicky about time travel sometimes. Because the time travel changed and everyone remembered both timelines. So okay, I sure, why not? I guess it was consistent with its own rules. Versus Mechagodzilla 2, or rather the 90s versus Mechagodzilla. The 2 was added in the American releases, I guess, to differentiate it from the older one. I think I just fell asleep during this one because I have no notes on it comparatively. It's a sequel to the the other ones, like the Mecha King Ghidorah from the previous movie. His technology gets used to make Mechagodzilla. That happens. I don't know. The movie happened. See, I have notes here, but I don't even remember what enough context to see why they mattered. One of the characters tried to destroy Godzilla in hopes it would lead to progress, apparently. But there was Godzilla baby that factored into it, and destruction doesn't lead to progress or something. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, then we get versus Destroyah, which was, I think, since the original, probably maybe even the most engaged I was in a Godzilla movie up to this point. Where you had this fucking the Destroyah, it's, he's basically to the oxygen destroyer what Godzilla was to the atom bomb, where so he's right off the bat, he's kind of this anti-Godzilla, and Godzilla's got a plot line where he's going nuclear, and because he's basically a nuclear reactor, and he's gonna blow. And there's baby Godzilla, and Destroyah is basically an alien thing, there's smaller ones that are harassing the humans, and I don't know, it was cool, it was neat. I guess one note I wrote down, because Serizawa in the first film made the oxygen destroyer, and he kept its secrets hidden to because he made the oxygen destroyer for progress and the benefit it would bring, but he recognized that it could be used as a dangerous weapon, so he wanted to hide its secrets because of that danger. Where in this movie, because it takes place or it came out in 95, the original came out in 54, so we're talking a 40-year difference. So science has advanced in the fictional universe and real life, and so the oxygen destroyer is back, and literally in the form of the Destroyah. So I don't know where that went in the actual conflict of the movie, but I don't know, I liked it. Anyway, then we get Godzilla 1998, the American film, and holy shit, this movie is a clusterfuck of incompetence. So I had to read some of the the response to this movie, because I was just baffled. At the time, it was my least favorite Godzilla. I gave it a 2 out of 10. So it is my lowest rated one. It's just so, I can't, this movie kind of fucks up in every way. The one thing I'll give it is the special effects, it's even for just 98, they're fine. Zilla looks fine. It's not bad. Compared to Final Wars, Final Wars, the CG for Zilla looked awful. Hell, okay, I'll give the original this, is that Final Wars kind of fucked up his Zilla, because he comes in with his bad CG, and then he eats people, and that's not right, because Big Zilla only eats people in times or his babies specifically only, or its babies. I think they mention that's there's no, I don't know, I don't remember. But the Big Zilla only eats fishies. He's a big boy who only wants to eat fishies. He's not a human eater. And that was like one of the things that because like they tried to the writers, they wanted to ground Godzilla like the fishies, instead of having Godzilla's big atomic ray, he has like bad breath that catches fire and turns into a fireball. He has stinky breath. It's so stupid. And like the military tries to attack him and he just runs away. And I remember one of the comments from one of the one of the Toho staff. He's like, they took the god out of Godzilla. He runs away from military might because like, oh, Americans can't imagine their weapons being ineffective on a giant monster like that. Which kind of is against the point of Godzilla because he's the response to aggression. And what is the military but aggression? And it was just like it was really goofy. Like not just the way he like ran away from the missiles and tanks and stuff, and like they would just crash and like, but also with like later on. So like that was one thing the writers one of the writers saw as like a flaw with the script, is like they couldn't figure out what Godzilla was, like, because again, like kaiju should be like representative of something if the movie's going to be functional as a narrative. And they couldn't figure out, is Godzilla just an animal, or is he like an antagonistic force? Is he something to be destroyed? Because the movie kind of like, there's like so Godzilla, he is consumption. He eats fish, and then I keep saying he, I don't know why. It's children, like the threat. There's like literally hundreds, thousands of them, of baby Godzillas who are all it's compared to, I saw it being compared to Jurassic Park, because they're like human, they're Jurassic Park raptors, not real life raptors, but historical raptors. But no, Jurassic Park giant like they run around the mall and they're trying to eat the main characters, and there's a fucking scene where the main character's running away from some of the baby Godzillas, and he knocks over like a thing of gumballs and a thing of basketballs, and the Godzillas slip like it's fucking Home Alone. So here, Joe, let me finish your comparison, because you called Godzilla Jurassic Park meets Ferris Bueller meets something else. Home Alone. I'm filling in Home Alone to that, because I don't. Because I think the main actor was in Ferris Bueller, I guess. I saw the movie. I don't know actors in general. And yeah, Jurassic Park, because the end of the movie has the raptors, and then Home Alone because the raptors slip on gumballs. And every time I told that to Vindy and another friend of mine, a coworker, and they were both like, I remember that scene from seeing the movie as a kid, or when I was younger, and I was like, yeah. And it's just. So anyway, back to the clusterfuck of the movie, because there's a lot of ad product placement and stuff. So I'm like, there's a French character who he's like, oh, this coffee is bad, but oh, it's French roast, that means it's good. So I don't know. Is it trying consumption? Is it trying to say something about, it takes place? The climax takes place in the mall. It doesn't say anything about capitalism or consumerism or anything like that. So and then if there was a message I would draw from the movie, like the main, the hero, the main lead lady is she's having a problem with her as a news person, as an intern, and she's told by a friend, oh, you need to stop being the nice girls finish last, and she is mean to the main character, and it suffers the relationship, and they get a fight, and they have to reconcile later. It was narratively the wrong decision to do. She was wrong to be mean. She just needed to stand up to her boss and not just be mean in general. And so, okay, and then, but does that, and it actually kind of goes into the Godzilla thing, because Godzilla, there's a whole big, Jurassic, big animal moment where, Godzilla's, gonna eat the fishies, and the main character, taps his nose, and he's, touches and strokes it, and Godzilla just ignores him and goes to the fish. He's like, have a moment. The main character is too nice. He doesn't want to kill the big creature, but the big creature's gonna eat, all its babies are gonna eat the humanity and keep breeding and just, eat the whole planet, basically. So no, he's got to stop being a nice guy and kill the Godzillas, and they give the bombing order to kill the so that they can bomb them all and kill the Godzilla nest. And yeah, I don't. Then the movie just visually, it was really it starts off on some reverse shot, my favorite cinematic technique for boring me out of my mind. No, I don't. It was just kind of set the tone. It's just a weird movie. There's like side characters who, like, there's this one girl, like they're on a research team chasing the Godzilla footprints at the start of the movie, and then she wants to fuck the main character, and there's a guy whose personality is that he keeps sneezing at people and like it's gross, and then they do nothing for the rest of the movie, and then at the end these two side characters who were with the main character start just like kiss. Like, what why I don't the movie was just a really baffling experience watching it, and like I'm not even a major fan of Godzilla. Okay, like at this point I hadn't given a Godzilla movie higher than a 6 out of 10, and this movie was just like frustrating and baffling and oh god. Oh yeah, and I especially love how they like they like bring up the Bikini Atoll Casa Bravo nuclear bomb testing, which was a political middle finger to the Japanese, considering that they sealed up a warship full of dead soldiers from World War II, and blew it up with a nuke, which was, you know, direct inspiration for Godzilla. Except the character trying to cover up this information and its connection to the 98 Godzilla, the Zilla itself rather, is French. Because I guess the French were also involved, but like, so they're calling attention to it, but not incriminating America for it. Not the last time that an American film would bring up Casa Bravo and not claim accountability for it, which is we'll talk about that. So yeah, weird, yeah, painful, kind of like probably one of the worst things I've seen in a while. So anyway, then we got to a movie that I like slightly more than Godzilla in 98. Giant Monsters All Out Attack. So this one, as far as like goofy wackiness goes, like, you know, just watch Final Wars, like, because it's kind of got that, and I was like, oh yeah. And then it had a lot of other things that I kind of didn't like, because like so there's 4 monsters in the film, like kind of the main 4 in the franchise, I would argue, because in like King of the Monsters, they're also like the most important ones. That were in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. The 3 of them teamed up. It's Rodan, King Ghidorah, Godzilla, and Mothra. And like, so Godzilla, you know, he's framed as he's the war dead. He's the the rage of, you know, war, you know, the Casa Bravo test. They kind of directly call attention to it. I don't know why. The other 3 are like they're the guardians of Japan, the ancient guardians of Japan. They're here to save it from Godzilla because he's a monster, I guess. But on the way there, they also like kill random people. Like, not random, because like I remember specifically there was like a bunch of hooligans. Oh no, it wasn't Rodan, it was Baragon. Oh my god, I'm stupid. I just checked my notes and realized I was wrong, because I was like, wait, no, there was monsters like crawling around underground and in tunnels and stuff. It was Baragon. Not Rodan. He wasn't in the movie, so I guess I was wrong about these are the main 3 after Godzilla. Nope, shut up, me, of 5 seconds ago. So yeah, because there was like a bunch of there was hooligans, and they were like, they found a dog and they were putting him in a box and a bunch of rocks. They were gonna drown the dog, and then Mothra comes and like kills all these like stupid teenagers, and the dog is like, there's a news report after, and the dog is safe, and then there's a bunch of delinquent bikers, and Baragon just fucking like ends up killing a bunch of them. Like, so, and this I found was weird, because again, these are the Guardians of Japan killing people who don't fit the cultural mold of Japan, like undesirables, basically. And you know, like it does kind of have that horror movie vibe. But I still thought it was kind of weird, because the movie also takes this kind of like laughing at the idea of disaster almost. Like, so there's one scene where there's like a family in a house, and like, or maybe it's like an inn or something like that. And there's like a guy pissing, and there's like shaking, and he like pisses everywhere because of it. And then like it cuts to like the wife, and she's like screaming in the kitchen because all the stuff is falling out of place. And she looks out the window and she screams, and Godzilla crushes the house. And it's like what am I supposed to feel from that? So you have like woman screaming and scared right before her death, and also dude pissing all over himself. Am I supposed to be laughing, or am I supposed to feel bad? And the part of this that I really made me hate this was later on. There's a scene. There's like a girl in a hospital, just like a high school girl, something like that. I forget. And she's got a broken leg, and she's like sitting in her hospital bed, and she sees Godzilla in the window. She's freaking out. She's like, because she can't move. No one's there to help her, and she if Godzilla goes through the building, she's dead. And Godzilla he turns away, and she like breathes a sigh of relief. And then with this really comedic timing, Godzilla's tail comes in and crushes the building, and she presumably dies. And that pissed me the fuck off, because she's like at least I can kind of get the delinquents and stuff, because they're like, again, it's the horror movie thing. You make these unlikable characters so that they die and you don't feel bad for them. But this is just like a normal girl who life fucked her in some way, and and then she dies because Godzilla. And again, framed very comedically in a movie that's like that. Later on, like there's a scene where like there's a kid crying. He's like, "Am I gonna die?" And the main character is like, "No, you're not gonna die." And then like later, we gotta fight for a future for our children, and because the Guardians of Japan fail, and then the military defeats Godzilla, and and when the scene with the kid who was afraid of dying happened, I legit went like, are you gonna die? I don't know. Do you look like a punchline? Because the movie makes a punchline out of death, and then kind of has the audacity to like, we gotta think of the children. They need to not die, and like it would. The goofiness didn't like save the aspects of it that I just thought were kind of not good. Like the way it handled death. I don't like how it made a mockery of. The vibe I got from it was, it felt kind of like pre-Fukushima. Like, again, Pause Select is apparently my favorite YouTuber, but it's more that like the stuff he's talked about is really, he talks more about the Japanese culture than any other YouTuber I've watched pretty much. And in the Apocalypse series, he talks about the issue with the Fukushima disaster, where it's like a perfect piece sort of neglects the idea, and maybe I'm butchering it here, but like, you have to ignore the fact that something can go wrong. Because if you're, like, worrying about things that can go wrong, it's not really peaceful. But as a result, like, a perfect peace results in a worse disaster, which, was kind of part of why Fukushima was as bad as it was. Because Japan had been, I guess, peaceful for so long that people didn't want to assume that a disaster would happen, so they weren't ready for it when it happened. And this movie kind of, like, it's 2001, so, decades after World War II, after the atom bomb dropped, so the people making the movies didn't really, like, their parents had that in their memory, but they probably didn't. They were probably really young when it happened, if they were even born. And it was obviously 10 years between the Toho earthquake and Fukushima disaster. So, that's what I kind of, got from the movie, where it does kind of represent that sort of, like, in-between mindset of just, like, it's able to laugh at the people dying in the disaster because disaster seems so distant from it, basically. And I didn't like that aspect, especially consider, like, while I was watching these movies, like, last couple of years I live in California, the Napa wildfire, the Paradise wildfire. I've been to Paradise like 3 times, or I had been. It doesn't exist anymore. The town is gone. My friend's dad narrowly basically lost everything. Like, disaster is pretty, even just as an American, I've been lucky, and not like, that's the closest I've been affected by disaster. Like, since then, the Australian bushfires, like, gonna be a lot of disasters, so, just personally didn't sit well with me. And I guess to move on, because I didn't have this problem with Godzilla Final Wars, which arguably had more destruction, but it wasn't like dwelling on it or laughing at it, like it wasn't about the destruction. It wasn't, like, there was some weird, like, goofiness to it. Like, there was a really weird scene where, like, there's, like, a black pimp in America, and he, like, he points his gun at the cop, and the cop is just like, okay, whatever. And I'm just like, well, this doesn't represent America at all. And then they both die when a monster attacks or something like that. And I just thought it was really funny that you have a black guy draws a gun at a cop, and the cop just doesn't give a fuck. And I'm like, what? What is happening? What is this? Because, yeah, Final Wars definitely has the kind of, like I talked about how, like, King Ghidorah had Terminator, and versus Destroyah had Alien, and this one had, like, they mentioned mutants, and I thought of X-Men, but they were really, like, it was an excuse for Matrix, like, there was slow-mo and long coats, and I'm like, oh, so it's actually the Matrix, okay. But no, it was also just like a big bunch, there's just a big bunch of monster fights, and they're cool, and, oh no, I guess it does avoid the xenophobia thing, because there's, like, a major character who's just a white, like, military captain, and, you know, he's just cool, and he's got a katana for some reason, I think, and there's a whole, like, shonen conflict of, like, you know, sacrifice and mercy and killing, and, like, you know, the movie starts with the two friends fighting, and like, oh yeah, but you can't kill me, and it's a fun time. Watch Final Wars. You know, just that general like, there's a mini subplot with the horrifying baby Godzilla Minila, who's like the movie ends with the kid protecting the Godzilla from the humans, and Minia protecting the humans from Godzilla, like, you know, themes. Yeah, it's fun. It's probably I'd say it's my third favorite Godzilla movie. Because now we're skipping. So I was planning to watch them just in, like, release order, but then I realized that you know, I should probably just watch the legendary ones in order. So I swapped Shin Godzilla and 2014 Godzilla, because Shin Godzilla came out after 2014, but before Kong Skull Island, and I'm glad I fucking did, because Shin Godzilla. Well, I watched Shin Godzilla at kind of the perfect point. This movie, holy shit, like, oh my god. I'm gonna talk, like, analyze it and stuff more in the video. Like, people already talked about how the political commentary about how, you know, it's a direct response to the Toho earthquake and Fukushima disaster, where the government was, like, wringing its hands and, you know, looking to America for, like, oh, what do we do? Where this movie kind of, like, shows the kind of, like, ideal of what they should do, where they, you know, Japan needs to stand on its own next to these other nations. You know, bringing down Godzilla is a team effort. You know, American drones take away Godzilla's power, you know, energy, so that they can deliver the blood. Like, it's not, they don't use, that's another thing, as I thought it was interesting as a response to, like, the original Godzilla, where, like, they don't take down Godzilla through aggression directly. Like, they use aggression to wear it out, and then, but they use a drug, a blood coagulant. Like, it's not like the oxygen destroyer. No, it's just pharmaceutical, knowledge. Like, they're, if any, you know, and there's also this threat of America's aggression. Like, they're trying to, like, again, going back, like, if they can't stop Godzilla's, they're just gonna fucking nuke it. And, like, you know, which, going by just the rules of Godzilla and just, you know, general kaiju movies, you know, more aggression, bad. So, like, that would only likely only cause more problems, so they're trying to avoid that, obviously. And they do. It's, you know, it ends up on a hopeful, optimistic note. And Godzilla himself, like, this is part of why I watched it a little bit earlier than I thought, because someone on my server linked Godzilla's theme song, Who Will Know, and I was at work on the second day I watched the movie and went to work one day, and then the next day I was at work and I started thinking about that song, and it started playing in my head, and I had to, like, go into a side room because I was tearing up, because the song, it's what the movie does with Godzilla is it sort of drives in the fact that Godzilla is this animal who has been hurt by, you know, human negligence. Like there's a lot of little observations that some of them I didn't notice, but there's also, like, the way the movie kind of, like, uses, like, I mentioned earlier, like, the evolution of Godzilla and how that kind of ties to Shin Godzilla. And, like, because he starts out big and googly, like, with these googly eyes, and then he leaves and comes back later as a more regular, like, he maybe looks more like the 90s Godzilla almost. So it's like, you have the evolving nature of Godzilla in his design, and, like, then there's also an aspect of it, like, the threatening, like I mentioned, the threateningness of Godzilla, because the big googly eyes make him look less threatening. And the first Godzilla, like, he's bleeding all over the place, he's just walking, like, he's, you know, but he's also, he's literally, like, less threatening than he seems, because they don't notice the radiation until after he's gone. Like, they don't notice how dangerous he really was until he leaves. And then so, like, which I also, like, I vaguely remember when the disaster was happening. Like, I remember it didn't start to become like it was an escalating situation. Like, people didn't know how bad it was at first. Like, okay, earthquake, okay, tidal wave, okay, now bodies are starting to wash up. Oh, the Fukushima power plant is going, like, is that, like, again, so I saw it evolve as a situation that what didn't seem as threatening as it happened to turn out to be. So it's like, in the way the design, the mutual, like, because there was a review of the Shin Godzilla I watched, and that pointed it out to me and made me realize this, because it compared the first Godzilla attack to the earthquake, where, you know, there's like imagery of the water, the flooding from Godzilla going down the river and stuff, and the wreckage from buildings, you know, deliberately drawing on that imagery. And then the second time it attacks, it like comes to the city, it stops, it's leaking radiation, because it's like it's basically, it becomes the Fukushima power plant. So it's like the two Godzilla attacks are the two sides of the disaster, and the design goes into the level of threat it was perceived as, because obviously, like, nuclear reactor going haywire, it looks more threatening and scary, like Godzilla looks more threatening and scary than just the earthquake and tsunami, which was already bad in itself, but, you know, less threatening relatively speaking, in a sense, you could say. There was some scare about, like, there was a fake image going around about how people were worried that the radiation would come to California in the U.S., and, you know, not the case, but you know, still just, like, there was some panic going around. And God, and but what I was going with that is, like, because Godzilla's, like, in pain the whole movie, and like, the last shot of the movie is you see his tail, you see all these skeletal Godzillas, which is, it's just like, Godzilla's not, it's a monster. It's not able to communicate to the people, like, that it's just an animal in pain, except its tail at the end, where you have these humanoid Godzilla things in pain, where it's just a physical manifestation of what it is. And, like, that's kind of the twist reveal. So, like, I didn't actually recognize what that was at first, because I knew the twist going in, basically. Because, like, there's some details, like, during the fucking laser atomic ray blast scene, which is, one, styling on the fucking 98 Godzilla, because, like, he does the same breath, where it's, like, he shoots out gas, he shoots out stinky bad breath, and then it catches fire, except it's, like, actually fucking horrifying. And the theme was playing, and I'm fucking crying, because I know that Godzilla's in pain, like, and, you know, it was pointed out, like, he's doubled over, like, he's vomiting, like, he's letting it all out, like, he does, you know, and he stumbles when he's shooting the beams, and oh my god, this fucking movie. Like, and the human character, like, the human parts for it, like, yeah, there's, like, little jokes and jabs again at the government, like, they cut from one meeting to another meeting. The main, like, I was pointing out in the review video that the main character's titles, he gets more titles in his name, introduction title card gets longer. You know, the characters are fine, and, you know, they service the narrative, which is what they're there for, and, oh my god. This movie hit me hard. Especially because, like, the Godzilla comment section on, like, this review and, like, some of the music is honestly, like, some of the best comment section that I've seen on YouTube. Like, oh my god, this movie. I can't wait to get to this video and rewatch it, because, god, Shin Godzilla. I spoiled the fuck out of it, but please watch it. If you haven't, like, I'd still recommend watching the original too, because, like, they kind of, it's a remake, except instead of using the atomic bomb Casa Bravo testing in World War II, it uses Fukushima and the Toho earthquake. And you'll notice the Evangelion soundtrack, because it's Anno, same composer as the Evangelion, or he hired, you know, Anno isn't a composer. He's just he's a director who directed the composer. Yeah, you know what I meant. I'll talk about it more in detail. I mostly spoiled some of the big stuff, but like, I guess what really hit me about the movie was the way, like, here you have this ecological disaster caused by the negligence of humanity, and you have, like, governments, like, there was one comment that talks about how he's this, like, you know, blistering tumor, he's this obvious monster, this obvious problem, and no one is willing to step up to stop it, to do something about this obvious problem. And, you know, the climate change kind of stuff hit me. That's what hit me about it, because obvious problem, no one's fucking doing anything about it, or there's no one important, you know, no fucking politicians are. I mean, maybe not none. I don't want to think about it. But you know, and then, like, so, you know, because again, you know, like, Godzilla could be whatever you want. Like, there was also an interesting comment talk about the song and how it, like, relates to depression, which is another Hideaki Anno thing. And I can see that too, because guess what? Governments also don't do much about psychological healthcare. You know, so, because, you know, that's the the tragedy of the movie is just the governmental inaction. It's sad. God, I can't wait to watch that movie again. Holy shit. Anyway, going back to Mid, like, it's amazing. Like, that movie is, like, so far. Like, again, it's like 3. I give it a 10. My second favorite God movie, when I give it 7. After that, I have, like, 3 6s, or 3 6s and 5s, and then the rest is, like, 4 at best. Here's another 4. Godzilla 2014. Oh, boy, I sure do love Casa Bravo. Crime denial, or, not, it's not really a crime. It's more like a political middle finger denial. Because, like, instead of, the actual Casa Bravo testing kind of inspired Godzilla. Like, it created Godzilla. Like, no, in the movie, it literally did create Godzilla. Like, it awoke a wizard. A lizard. Got a wizard. A lizard. A giant, prehistoric lizard. But in 2014, no, they were trying to kill a big lizard. They were trying to destroy Godzilla with the Casa Bravo. So they, like, call attention to it, but, like they even used the footage and just from okay, sure. Really, the issue with the movie is that it's fucking boring as shit, and like, people say, oh, there's too many human characters. No, the issue is that there's, like, Bryan Cranston's human character is, like, decent, and there's the only good scene in the movie is in the beginning, where, like, the nuclear disasters, or there's a reactor meltdown because of a monster that's attacking. That's implied to be Godzilla, but it's not actually Godzilla. And his wife dies, and it's sad. And I was actually like, wow, am I actually feeling emotions like this early into the movie? And then well, they like half kill off his character. Like, there's an accident, and he's, like, sent away in a ambulance. He's not in a body bag, but, like, his son on the phone says he's gone, and I'm like, I did he die? I don't, like, someone on my service said, oh yeah, he died, and I was like, what? You spoiled me? But then, like, no, he was talking about a scene that I already watched. I just didn't recognize that he was supposed to be dead, and I don't. It was vague and stupid, and yeah, like, it kind of I don't know. It's just, like, it has all these elements, like, like I said, there was a nuclear meltdown. Like, oh, that's what I thought was interesting. So, Shin Godzilla, like I mentioned, it kind of, like, there's an American politician character who talks about how, oh God, Japan, they're not a child. It's, the country's not a child anymore, in the geopolitical sense. They can send some, and, like, at the end, the movie is, like, Japan rising and, being alongside these other nations and not being, like, submissive to the USA. And so I thought, realizing that, and then watching this movie, you kind of have, there's a disaster at a nuclear plant, involving the Muto, and the Muto goes to fuck off to San Francisco, and America deals with it, and Godzilla deals with it. Like, there's even a part of the movie where they make, like, what's his fucking, I didn't write down the character's name, the soldier's son, he's in Hawaii, and there's, like, a Japanese kid, and he's, like, protecting the Japanese kid, and he helps him reunite with his parents, and it's like, so I just thought it was interesting that 2 years after this movie, you'd have a film that commented on, a Godzilla film specifically, that commented on, Japan being infantilized by America and, having to grow up, or where, in this movie, infantilizes Japan, where it has, they have their problems that they can't fucking deal with at all, and the main character is, like, protecting a kid for, like, a good 15, 20 minutes, or maybe over exaggerated, and yeah, it's just kind of, like, probably incidental, like, I don't know if it's purposeful, but it's, like, it's still kind of there, and overall, like, the movie was just kind of mixed in general, like, there's a part during the climax where a plane gets, like, they're hit by an EMP by the Muto, and it crashes into a tower, like, and a light flashes in my head. 9/11? Like, I don't know what this movie was trying to do, if there was, like, any allegory there, because I even looked up, like, reviews and comments, and someone, like really liked the movie on Letterboxd, and they mentioned 9/11, but they didn't analyze it, they didn't break it down, because I would have loved to hear a account on why, like, what was the movie trying to do, because I don't know, like... I just watched the Lindsay Ellis video on the War of the Worlds. Is it the terrorists? Like, is that what Muto is supposed to represent? Is Muto the terrorists? Like, are they going to take our electronics and Godzilla's going to come and eat them? Like, I don't know what the movie was doing. Yeah, just kind of like, yep, there's the military. Oh, military's got big guns. I mean, they weren't. There's nukes, and then Godzilla saves the day. Godzilla's a hero. Like, yeah, Godzilla was definitely at its most heroic in these movies, even like compared to Final Wars, where he's like still a thing that needs to be sealed away. Oh yeah, and I guess another thing I didn't like with Bryan Cranston's character is he's like this crazed, like, there's a conspiracy, they're covering up the disaster, something happened there, because, there was a giant monster and he didn't want, and like, so they frame the kooky conspiracy theorists as correct, I wasn't a fan of that either. I don't know, well, because I guess, like, they framed him as kooky because he couldn't get over the death of his wife, where his son just wanted to protect what mattered to him, his family and stuff, and that was a theme. I mean, the Muto were also a family. They were trying to just breed and be animals. They just happened to eat nuclear radiation and also EMPs, so they like couldn't weren't compatible with humanity because humanity runs on electricity. And then Godzilla comes in and kills them. So I just like so going back to the criticism of the movie where it's like, oh, there's too many human characters. Like, yeah. That's because the only decent human character is dead like half an hour into the movie. The rest of the conflict and arc isn't good. So it's like, and yeah, there's definitely a moment like where there's like Godzilla's about to fight the Muto and then they don't show the fight. They just kind of like, so, aren't we here for the big dumb monster action? So I don't know, it didn't bother me that much, but I definitely had that thought. I don't know, just really boring, not very good. And then you have Kong Skull Island, which this one kind of frustrated even more because, like, somehow there were more characters, but they weren't, like, I don't know, they served their purpose. Like, there was a good aspect to the movie, and that was, like, again, the movie, it's kind of, okay, so it's, like, it is kind of very much a reflection on Vietnam, in response to it, where, you have Samuel L. Jackson's character, he's, like, we lost Vietnam, so we're gonna come to this Skull Island, and Kong killed some of our dudes because we were literally dropping bombs, and why wouldn't someone be mad when we come into his home? And so we gotta cause war, violence, he's the bad guy, and so like there is kind of this allegorical element with Vietnam, and that's where I thought it was weird because Kong is based like. They even mentioned like he's still juvenile, like he'll get bigger. He's because in Kong versus Godzilla he's got to be bigger because he's got to fight Godzilla. But what was weird about it was like because Kong is kind of allegorical to the Vietnamese, and there's also a tribe of people there who. When it was mentioned that they don't have property, my mind jumped to communism because it's like. Is that what you're going with here? Like, the aggression thing I liked. Like, there were scenes, and there's, like, a bit of, like, the masculinity of war kind of thing, where it's, like, there's a scene where the nerdy scientist guy, he, like, I'll help you, I'll be a man and help you open that can, and he cuts himself with the knife, and the girl just takes it back and laughs at him, and that's, like, the whole scene. And, because it's just, like, criticizing him for being a man when, he's not wrong for not being manly, because the manly men, like, the soldiers, they come into this island, they start dropping bombs, and Kong fucking murders them. And, pretty sure you're not supposed to be sympathetic towards the soldiers at this point. Like, not all like, some of the soldiers are supposed to be sympathetic because they, recognize the errors. But, yeah, like, and that's supposed to be, I guess, supposed to be responding to the Vietnam conflict, where, I think, aside from me not caring about any of the characters beyond what they, like, functioned in the narrative, I guess there was another good scene where there's, like, he's a soldier, he's, like, sitting on a log, and the log turns out to be a giant praying mantis, and he shoots it, and it's, the praying mantis just kind of, like, walks away, like, it wasn't trying to kill him or anything, but his aggression, bit him in the ass, because it summons the actual, like, monster, skull crawlers, the real monsters, and they eat him, like, it's punishing him for his aggression, and, like, the movie just kind of, like, yeah, and I guess the Skullcrawler, like, that aspect to it I liked and thought was fine, again, even if I didn't care for any of the characters beyond what they offered. The weird part was the Skullcrawlers adding into the allegory, it, like, because it's not just, like, being an allegory, it's also kind of, like, maybe doing, like, a response to it, like, no, maybe this is how it should have happened. But that kind of ended, like, it's weird, so it's weird, because it kind of confuses the allegory, because, like, what are the skull crawlers then? If like Kong and the tribal islanders are representative of the Vietnamese, then what are the skull crawlers? Because like Kong's parents were killed by the skull crawlers, not Americans. The Americans didn't. So what are the? I don't I don't get what the skull because that's what happens. The military and Kong team up to defeat the skull crawlers because Kong can't do it alone because he's too young, and the military is the fucking they're just humans up against these giant creatures. What are they gonna do? So like. It was just weird and frustrating, and again, kind of like, well, I don't know, was it infantilizing to make Kong out to be a child who needs the help of the military? Like, I don't know. I know it was weird. It was kind of frustrating to watch. Even though like I wanted to like it more than I did, and maybe I'm just not giving enough credit. Like, maybe it's just not a good movie. I don't know. Like this is Kong is probably one where I'm like, it was pretty harsh on it, but I'm also more willing to like. Reconsider my thoughts on it because it was a weird watch, and there was some like unintentional comedy for sure, or just dumb stuff. Like there's one scene where like a scientist gets like dragged off by a bunch of like birds and like ripped apart midair. I don't think it was supposed to be funny. The fact that I have to mention it is meant to imply that I thought it was funny. What really funny one is like it's kind of like a character moment because like one of the soldiers, he's like constantly like the most pro violence and like we have a gun, guns, and like, but he kind of like, I guess he's like kind of recognizes that and that he's not fit for this post war world because he like a skull crawler is chasing him and he's like you guys go ahead, and he's like, no, don't do it, no, and he like drops his grenade, he pulls a pin from a grenade, he holds it up as the creature comes toward him, like he's about to get eaten, and the creature like tail whips him, and he flies 100 feet away and explodes. And it's funny, but nothing else about the scene. Like it's supposed to be a big character moment. His comrades are crying about him dying, and I'm like, what the fuck is this movie trying to do? It's so bad. I don't. And then oh yeah, then there was a fight in the like a graveyard where Kong's parents had been killed, and now there's like two characters, like they light up a cigarette and drop it and it explodes, like and they're like, oh yeah, watch the fumes, and then they fight a skullcrawler, and Brie Larson's character like lights a lighter and she throws it and it blows up under the monster, and ooh yeah, tactics. The weird part is that in between these two scenes, Samuel L. Jackson goes, light him up, and some dudes pull out a fucking flamethrower, and they light up the monster, and the monster's unaffected. None of the fumes get hit, and even though that was like a previous established rule that gets brought up after the... What? Oh my god. I usually don't like harping on the small shit like that, but I don't know, sometimes it's just too stupid that I can't ignore it. Yeah, it was kind of frustrating, and I gave it a 3. So I liked it even less than most of the other films. Like it's down there, probably. I don't know, like because I like I said, I wanted to like it. Like there's some like deliberate like interesting things it's trying to do, and then there's just a bunch of dumb shit. Like there's a scene where Tom Hiddleston's character's just got a gas mask and he's fighting in the poison. He's got a katana, like he's cutting up, and it's cool. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not. No, stop. Like the best part of the movie was just getting to call all these characters by their Marvel film names, because I guess that's one thing about watching the Legendary Films movies is that like, as far as like big dumb action blockbusters go, the Marvel movies are pretty good. And I appreciate them more having watched Kong Skull Island and Godzilla 2014, which I would rank them, if I were to rank them with the Marvel movies, they'd be right at the bottom with fucking The Incredible Hulk and Thor the Dark World. So, actually, not very good. That said, King of the Monsters was actually good. Like, I guess there's criticism, too many monsters and not enough good human characters. No. This movie had the perfect balance of cool monsters and human characters. Like I said, they made Rodan cool. He's this big fucking firebird. He's doing barrel rolls and destroying all these fucking fighter jets, and fire is just constantly dripping out. He's a fucking volcano pterodactyl. It's fucking cool. Are you fucking kidding me? And like, yeah, the humans offer the ideological conflict. Like it goes into the climate change stuff where the Titans are nature, they're balancers of nature, and they kind of muddle the allegory by with King Ghidorah, he's an alien. Like it was kind of the same issue I had with the Skullcrawlers, where there's just this like unknown outsider that I don't understand how I'm supposed to read into a very real world conflict. Because the idea with the Titans is that, they bring balance to nature. Like, there's a whole credit scene where, Biollante turns the Sahara green. Scylla, the squid Titan, is reversing Antarctic, melting. And Godzilla's reviving the reefs. They're bringing balance to nature. And, so I guess we need to accept nature. Like, I don't know. Like, as a movie, it was fine. As, like, actual, like, things to take from it, I'm like, climate change is more of an issue than this. I don't know. And the humor was also kind of bad. Like, there's a whole scene where the antagonist goes on a speech about how, like, humanity bad, humanity caused pollution, we need the Titans to, restore balance and, maybe cause mass destruction, can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. They don't say that, but it's the same general concept, and it's like, low-key agreeing with the antagonist, and then a character just goes, that bitch, and I'm like, that wasn't funny, and not a good time, and there was just a lot of, like, ill-placed, like, Marvel humor, I almost want to say, where it's maybe trying to do that and not doing it, which even Marvel movies have issues with Marvel humor sometimes, with just weird placements, but, those gripes aside, I enjoyed the movie. Like, it had conflict, and the characters offered to that conflict, and, the monsters were cool. I don't know, what more do you want? And yeah, like, you had the oxygen destroyer comes back, it kills Godzilla, Serizawa, instead of sacrificing himself to use the oxygen destroyer to kill Godzilla, he sacrificed himself to use an atomic bomb to reverse the oxygen destroyer and save Godzilla. Like, okay, sure. There's, like, the Orca device and the human, like, the wavelength that best, like, controls the creature, or messes with the creatures, is a mixture of Godzilla and the human noises, because humans gotta work with nature, which was, that's the point of the movie, to stop the aliens, I guess. Yeah, I'm being a dick for no reason. There's a familial conflict, like, I enjoyed it. It was fun. Even though I feel like I have more negative to say. But I guess, like, what good is there to say of, like, yeah, conflict kind of works. Cool monsters. Like, I didn't realize it until someone was posting, like, the Godzilla theme music from the movie, where it, like, uses some of the theme beats from, his theme from the rest of the movies, where it's, like, how much this music had seeped into me from watching so many of the movies, and it's, like, I don't know, it's cool, like, it looks good, it's, it was a movie, I liked it, watched it, gave it a 7, enjoyed it, So yeah, Godzilla movies. Holy shit, this turned out to be pretty long. About as long as a Godzilla movie. So yeah, going back to what I said before. I already gave the ones I'd recommend watching. Godzilla. If you the fewest possible, just watch Godzilla and Shin Godzilla. The original 1954, and then the Hideaki Anno one, because holy shit, I like that one. Then and yeah, like I said, if you want to, based on what I liked and what I didn't like, don't just say, watch this one. No, sell it to me. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to ignore it, because it's like, like a lot of the ones I watched just kind of blended into each other, where it's, wow, that sure was a Godzilla movie. There were human characters who watched monsters come up, and then they fought for a bit, and then one of them won, and like, let there be something interesting to it, like something goofy or over the top, or a conflict or a message there, something that makes it stand out to me, because I don't, like, I or maybe it looks good, really fucking good, like Biollante. I don't know. I haven't heard good things about the anime films, the CG, the Generabuchi ones. I think he was involved with them, which is sad. But hey, see, I already talked about, like, kind of what I'd talk about in my videos, like, those will be more well presented, I hope. So anyway, thank you for listening. Godzilla.